Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you to what we're going to either call it a town hall chat or a fireplace chat. The young man in the middle of the table is Ethan Edwards. Ethan Edwards is a senior at Carroll County High School. He is somebody who has shown a great deal of initiative and is one of the go-getters if there ever was one. At this point, Ethan is going to take over this process. He'll be making a podcast of the conversation. He'll give everybody a chance to share some thoughts, a little bit about passion, life, education, and serving others. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ethan Edwards.
Thank you everyone for being here. I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves, tell everyone a little bit about who they are, why they do what they do, and then we'll get on to the directed questions. Mr. Carter, could you go first?
Yes, I am Jerry Carter, the founder of OneofUs.Care. One of our main objectives, more so than anything else, is kindness and education under the name of God. You're trying to find a way to raise the bar in any way, shape, or form that we can in regards to education, and do what we can to support anybody that has chosen to go down the path of an educator.
Great, thank you. Dr. McBride, would you like to go next?
Sure. Oliver McBride. I had the opportunity to serve Carroll County Public Schools 18 years from 1989 to 2007 as school superintendent. I was blessed with that opportunity to come and work here among people who had a desire to see educational progress made, and we're thankful for the opportunity to have been here and done that. Been a little bit busy since I left being superintendent. We'll talk about some of that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McBride. Dr. Burnette, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Ethan. I'm Mark Burnette. I am current superintendent of Carroll County Public Schools. I have been since 2019, actually. This is my 37th year in public education. I went to high school here. I went to elementary school here. I taught here, and I guess now I'm superintendent here. So I have a commitment to Carroll County and the folks of Carroll County. Very proud of what we do. And our next person's just walked in, Ethan. Shannon, introduce yourself.
I'm Shannon Dalton. I teach at Carroll County High School, and excited to be here today. Thank you guys for coming.
So thank you everyone for being here and for shortly introducing yourself. I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question to Mr. Carter. He is the organizer of all of this, and he's been a powerful force in the community. There's something he was telling us before we got started about what education means to him. So I'd like to ask that question on the air. What does an education mean to you, Mr. Carter?
Yeah, I am actually a poster child of what not getting an education looks like. The shortest version of this story, I was 14 years old when it happened. I was run over by a drunk driver after a basketball game. I had actually scored 42 points that game, and I thought basketball was what I would be doing for the rest of my life. While I bleed for the military in every way, shape, and form, the one place that the military might be behind the eight ball is when it comes to the medical profession. Anybody who is worth their weight in gold as a doctor is going to go out in private practice and be a doctor there. They didn't know how to put me back together. I'm fortunate in that my wife is the only one that has to deal with the missing parts of my body. But not knowing how to help me, they kept me medicated with some really intense drugs for a couple of years. What ended up happening there is I have no other way to say it. I spent 2 years of my life stoned out of my mind because that's what somebody could do for me. The next 2 years of my high school were equally awkward because by that point I was a basket case, or here's somebody we want to pass up the road. We want to move them up a little bit, to the point where it wasn't until I graduated and sat down and tried to get into college that I first choice was Duke, and the lady in the admissions office there said, looking at your transcript, son, I don't know that you could spell Duke. The next person at James Madison said, who did this to you? There wasn't any one person that did something to me. It's just that nobody did something for me. So when you have a chance to reach back and move the needle, and we're in year 5 now, all that we're trying to do is present any opportunity that anybody that gives their heart and soul for education, if there's a tool we could give them, if there's something we can provide for them, that's what it is that we want to do for them.
Great, thank you. And I'll hand the next question off to Dr. McBride. It's similar, but why did you enter the field of education?
Just briefly about my story. I guess I need to start there, huh?
Yeah.
As a young person, about age 15 or so, having been one who participated in church activities along the way, I felt that my call was actually to the ministry. And so I went to college with that intent, thinking that I would finish 4 years of school, go off to seminary, and follow on through some form of ministry. As I went through my college experience, I did apply to seminary. I did attend seminary for 1 semester, and it was one of the most interesting, I guess, times in my life. While I was there, it felt uncomfortable. I didn't feel like I was doing what I needed to be about. And I heard this little voice, as I describe it, that said, teach, 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 teach. And so having heard that, I left after a semester at seminary, went home, became a substitute teacher, after also pursuing something in social work. I thought maybe that was a direction for me. That proved not to be the case, and so I did have an opportunity to become a substitute teacher in math, which was not one of my primary fields, but it was 8th and 9th grade math. I could handle that one pretty well. And then they offered a full-time position at the end of that year. The school where I was teaching, which was in Henry County, was a brand new high school, and they had not had a senior class that first year because they let the students in the county attend the school that they had been attending, the seniors that is, so they could finish their school where they had started. And so I told them if they would give me a job to teaching government, that I would get myself endorsed over that summer. So my sense of being involved in education, I would say, it was a calling, something that I felt I was directed to do. And I have considered it throughout my experience as being a ministry and my ministry. So that's how I got there, and that's how I enjoyed my time in being involved, and hopefully still am.
Thank you, Dr. McBride. That was a beautiful answer. Dr. Burnette, would you like to go next? Same question. What encouraged you to enter the field of education?
Well, I too did not take a traditional path into education. Growing up, most of the people in Carroll County have heard my story. I've shared it with them at our convocation. But I grew up in a single-parent household. My father died in a car accident when I was a year old. So my mom was a very hard-working, tireless woman, and worked 2 jobs about most of my life that I could ever remember. So my first job, I started working when I was 12 years old. So really I didn't know anything but work. I graduated from high school. I loved high school. I had a great experience in Carroll County. And I had a lot of great coaches that just influenced me a lot, and some great teachers as well that were a big influence on me. So as soon as I graduated, 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, attending basic training at a military base. So I served in the military, then I went to community college and got a degree in civil engineering technology, and from that point I worked in industry for a couple of years, and an opportunity came at Carroll County High School to teach drafting. The principal at that time was Harold Golding, and Harold's first comments to me was, "Can you coach?" And I said, "Absolutely." I said, "I would love to coach." So I ended up coaching 3 sports, football, wrestling, and track, and just really enjoyed my time there, working for Dr. McBride especially. He was a great mentor. You know, I had no intentions of ever going into education, but hard to believe that 37 years later, you know, I'm finally going to retire, and this is a passion of mine.
Thank you, Dr. Burnette, and we'll get the last question to Ms. Dalton. Same thing. Would encourage you to get into education as a career.
Well, I guess I also took a year or two to deny the call to teach. I loved my teachers. I was always a school kid. I enjoyed school when I was a kid. I lived my entire life to be valedictorian. I think Ethan's heard me tell this story. And came down to the last semester of our senior year, and I just didn't have it in me to take one more dual credit science, but and so I gave up to third. But I loved school, and I loved my teachers, and that was the place where I thought they made a difference to me, and I wanted to be the person who could make a difference to somebody else somewhere down the road. So I did go to college. I did do education in college, but I was in Lynchburg, went to Randolph-Macon Women's College, and there were a lot of opportunities in Lynchburg. So I had an internship with the newspaper there and worked at some radio stations, and so my degree was actually in communication and journalism, and a minor in history, and enjoyed those things immensely. But when I got out into the job market the next year, realized that radio and newspaper do not pay very well. And also, my husband was in law school at University of Richmond, and the radio stations in Richmond were not looking for someone who sounded like this. It was a little too much accent for the Richmond radio market. So a lot of doors got closed. I did get an offer at an AM Country Gold station in Richmond. But I ended up interviewing with Henrico County Public Schools and got a job teaching 7th grade English out by the racetrack on Laburnum at Fairfield Middle School in Richmond. So did that for a year. When Brad and I moved back to Hillsville, there weren't any jobs in the school systems around. And so I worked for the Galax Gazette for a year, and that was fun. But those are long hours and long days. And in small town news, if I don't see any of the news people here right now, but they can tell you it's hard to keep your friends because you have to report about your friends. And sometimes they don't like what you have to put in the paper about them and about the things that elected boards and officials, and I'm sure Dr. McBride and Dr. Burnette know that well. It's no fun to have to be the person who says that. So when an English job came open, Eddie Chitwood told me that I needed to go over and apply. And you always do what Eddie Chitwood tells you to do. And so I did. And I've been there ever since. And it's really, you know, I think all these stories are about how things fall together for a reason. And things fell together for a reason, and it's been great. We've done lots of things since I've been there. Lots of opportunities and trips and awards and just good discussions in class. And, you know, everything from the little interactions in a day up to the big things that you see in the paper, right? There's just a lot that goes into it, but the people keep you going, and the relationships with people keep you going. So it's been a good journey.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Dalton. And we'll move on to our next question. Dr. Burnette briefly mentioned Dr. McBride being one of his mentors as he was starting his career. And as Dr. McBride came for Dr. Burnette, I would like to ask Dr. McBride that question. Who was one of your most influential mentors as you started your career in education?
That's an easy question for me. I worked in the Henry County Public Schools. I'm going back up just a step or two. When I considered going to education, when I went back home after being that semester in seminary, I went and talked to my high school principal and told him that I was considering becoming a teacher, and he said, "Don't do that. You don't want to do that." Well, I didn't like his answer because I felt that's what I was supposed to do. So I proceeded. Well, along the way, I would say that my mentor was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Paul Jones. He had been superintendent in the Henry County Public Schools, and he gave me opportunities. After teaching for about 4 years, I went to graduate school. I have to plug this, the University of Virginia. But I would also have to say, in order to get the teaching job teaching the government, I had to go to Tech for a summer. So, I mean, that's a little bit of balance in there. But I went to the University of Virginia and had gotten a master's degree. I went back to get my doctorate, and that meant I had to leave my teaching spot. And when I came back to the county, I sent Dr. Jones a letter just saying I was interested in returning, and would he give me a job? I mean, I was hoping that the system would give me a job. It wasn't his alone to do. He offered me the opportunity to become working around the central office for a while. And I had some wonderful opportunities to work with personnel side of the business, and then the kind of the administrative side, including personnel and maintenance and transportation. So he gave me a lot of opportunity. And then about 2 years after that, he came to me one day and said, look, if you're going to stay in this business, you need to go out and work on the front line. And so he gave me an opportunity to go be the principal of one of our high schools. There were 5 in Henry County. And the gentleman there, who actually was originally from Carroll County, and his dad was one of the principals in Carroll County. I don't know if anyone would remember, Mr. F.S. DeVault was the principal at Woodlawn High School back in the day. And this was his son, Joe, who was going off to graduate school to work on his doctorate. And Dr. Jones sent me out there to be the principal. And after that year, Joe came back to the school, and he sent me to Bassett High School and gave me the opportunity to serve there. Dr. Jones moved to Halifax County, and after his being there a year, he offered me an opportunity to come and serve with him as the Director of Administrative Services and later an Assistant Superintendent in the Halifax County Schools. And so each step along the way, I would say that Dr. Jones was my mentor. What I learned, though, which is kind of interesting, is that after watching him and learning from him, when I came to be superintendent, I realized that I had to be me. I couldn't be him in that position. I had to be who I am. But based upon all that he gave me the opportunity to learn.
Thank you. That was a great answer. I have a question for Dr. Burnette, except a similar vein. But I recall this previous August during the System Wide opening, you joked about how you started your superintendency on the day that we shut down for COVID. I just want to ask you, who did you rely on during that time? It must have been stressful and obviously very chaotic. How did you get through it?
Actually, that was my very first official day as superintendent was March 13th, 2013. Now, I'd been serving in the capacity as an interim superintendent for most of the year previous, but my official first day was on COVID day. We depended on each other, to be quite honest. I depended on principals, the teachers, everyone to develop a plan of how we were going to proceed. I had no clue by myself of what we were going to do. It took us sitting down and putting our heads together and having conversations and coming up with a plan. Depended on other superintendents in the region that had more experience with that as I, but of course none of us had any experience with dealing with the pandemic. This is the first one in our lifetime. Yeah. So we figured it out. You know, we figured it out, and you put a bunch of good old country people together and let us put our minds together, and we can come up with a plan.
Absolutely.
And that's what we did.
Thank you. That's a great answer. It was definitely a trying time, and we all had to work together. I do want to get a teacher's perspective, though. How did your curriculum and instruction change with the virtual format and just helping students get through such a challenging time?
Well, I think Dr. Burnett is right. You just had to sit down and figure it out. This was a major curveball to everyone. But luckily in education, some of these distance learning and virtual things were kind of coming around. Colleges had some models. There were some things out there that you could look at. But it was a huge challenge here because technology is a huge challenge here. This is a rural area with lots of hills and valleys, and cell signal doesn't go everywhere you want it to go. And CenturyLink, we won't speak of them in public, but we just didn't have the reliable ways to reach the students. Even myself, my house sits in view of US 58, and I would have some days 0.05 amount of signal to try to get online and do things, and I would be on my cell phone data, I'd be on my computer, and one of them or the other of them, so if one dropped out, the other would stay on, so I wouldn't leave the meeting. But the kids were the same way, and I had 2 kids at home that were trying to do it, and none of us could work at the same time. And we were in a neighborhood that should have had resources, and so it was a real challenge. I think the challenge was maybe less so to the instructional front as it was to just being able to connect with people. And my boys swim on a year-round swim team, and I would drop them off and go to the McDonald's and sit in the McDonald's parking lot and work. And I had meetings upon meetings at that McDonald's parking lot, trying to stay in touch with kids. And you had to kind of shift your hours a lot of times, traditional school hours, after hours. There's a lot of flexibility that had to go into it. In some ways, though, I think it showed us new ways to use technology, new ways to get information to kids. We discovered at the high school, we discovered a whole lot of new products we didn't know about, ways to do quizzes, ways to do presentations, share videos. It pushed us, because I think high school maybe is slower to change our instructional strategies than the elementary, the middle school. It's easier to sit and talk to older people, so we don't always maybe shift as quickly as others. So it really showed us some new things. So, while there was a lot of struggle, it wasn't easy, and not everybody, certainly people got left behind, 100%, for lots of different reasons. Lack of family support, lack of connectivity, lack of structure and schedule. Certainly people got behind, but it also, kind of shifted and changed, and there was good and bad in it. How did it change it overall? Like I say, I really think it taught us new technologies. It taught us a lot of grace. It had its share of frustrations. And because we knew we were leaving people out and we weren't sure how to get them back. And that was a struggle. But overall, I think if you look around, what we put together in our area here in Carroll and some of the surrounding schools, I have a friend who's an assistant principal in Northern Virginia, and I think what we did was so much better than what some of the other parts of the state did. I'd hear stories, her talking about how parents wanted the kindergarten teachers on the computer from 8:30 to 3:30, like a screen going full time for their kids. And, I think that was the wrong interpretation. And I think we had a lot of right interpretations and what we could expect from people at home and with the resources that we had to work with. So I think we did a good job given, as Dr. Burnett said, we've never had a pandemic before. And we were reinventing a wheel that was already rolling down the hill. And so I think we did a good job of shifting and changing and doing what we could do until we could all be back together again.
Yeah, certainly. Like Dr. McBride and Dr. Burnett had mentioned earlier, we just got together and we figured it out. I remember sitting in my driveway at like 8 o'clock each morning and waiting on food to come on the bus, and they would drop off homework for me and my brother to do. And the community really came together and allowed for the students to make the most out of the situation. So I don't think that would have been possible anywhere else. That's something unique to us. Mr. Carter, I want to give you a little bit of time to talk about how COVID changed your mission and what you want to do in the community.
Thank you, Ethan. It's interesting because we were actually on the front end of COVID. We were still on the West Coast, a small island off the coast of Canada, and we actually dealt with it well before everybody else did. Yeah. You guys were still reading about it on the news, and even out there, we were thinking, well, that's something that's in China. That's not our problem. And then it became our problem pretty quick. And the Seattle area was ground zero for a while, and it was an eye-opening experience. And it was something that gave me a thought process of saying, is there more I can do? At that point, I went out there to save my life. The doctors were telling me it's not a question anymore if you're going to die, it's what day are you going to die. And went out there, lost 150 pounds, recouped a little bit, became normal again. And COVID happening, it kind of made me question myself, do I have the energy to go out one more time and make one run? Because you hear it a lot, in the TV shows and the movies, and somebody's going to talk about, this is where I came from, hey, I grew up in the hood, or this is the challenge that I faced. Mine wasn't any one place that I lived. It was the amount of obstacles that were in front of me. And to me, the number one thing that you want to do for somebody, if he can't do anything else, is give them hope, give them faith, give them a reason to believe. And that was, my take from COVID. Like I said, it happened to us. We were the first point in the United States to be dealing with it. And it caused me to just shift a little bit and say, hey, can you go out here? Because I don't know how to do anything partly or half-heartedly. And so that was my take from it. It just made me ask myself, do I have another round of let's make the world a better place in me? So.
Yeah, I agree. Hope was something that we all needed in that time. And to our school district's credit, we were able to keep doing sports and academic teams and extracurriculars, even when our school day didn't look as normal as it usually did. I still had basketball practice, and I went and did cross-country meets and cross-country practice. And I'm really proud that I was able to do that. And while the season looked different, I think we had the fall sports season in the winter, which was kind of weird. We still did it though. Dr. Burnette, would you like to talk a little bit about the logistics of making that system work and keeping that a priority and keeping that sense of normalcy for our students?
I try not to think about that as much because it was a nightmare to start with. But I mean, we put in, you talk about 20-hour days just trying to plan the logistics. We fed every student in Carroll County. And we delivered meals to every house in Carroll County. We took assignments to kids that didn't have internet. We took written assignments and delivered those. And that didn't happen because of one person or two people or whatever. That happened because of a team. We had folks that just worked tirelessly the whole time. And if I'm not mistaken, we were one of the first 1 or 2 school divisions to come back. Part-time, then full-time. We started out coming back on an alternate day schedule in the fall of 2000. Yeah, the fall of 2000. We came back every other day, and then by January we were back full-time. We kept sports going. Like Ethan said, we played fall sports in the winter. We played winter sports in the spring, and baseball and all in the spring as well. So we did as much to provide normalcy to our kids and our families as we could in a not so normal time.
Yeah, and I know one of Mr. Carter's focus here in Carroll County is supporting our local sports teams, and not just sports. We have our academic teams like MAC and Scholastic Bowl. And as a recipient of some of the donations that he's given us, I know it's helped out a lot. Mr. Carter, can you talk a little about why sports are so important for kids growing up?
Well, it's interesting, Ethan. That's a great question. And when I'm the one asking the questions, I've been reporting on things now for 46 years. I love it when somebody says that was a great question. It's kind of funny if you picture a map of the United States and you're in Virginia and you're trying to get to California. I felt like that my message had gotten so far off track that I was now in Maine. It just, because it's always been about, and we'll talk about it, as things go on, inclusion is a big word. Everybody who has a relationship with Christ has certain parts of the Bible that they focus on, and mine is equality. It's a situation where I believe that we're all created equally. There's going to be 126 people in this room today. I don't think there's anybody in the room that's any more important than anybody else in the room. That's part of the campaign. Sports is a club in the golf bag as far as how to reach people, how to reach things. Mrs. Dalton's over there on the end. I don't know if you'd ever have a class where I could come in and do play-by-play. I don't know what it would. I think it would be fun. I don't know what it would look like. So when you have a skill set and you have the ability to help somebody, you have to pick your spots. You have to match up what works. And so the sports is one part of it, but my goal was much greater than that. Because not everybody plays sports. It was Tammy Quesenberry who shared with me, it's not the ones that have the teams and the clubs to belong to, it's the other ones. It's the other ones, because you're trying to make sure that everybody has something. So in that particular situation, I was hoping that we could actually teach people how to report on the sports. We could maybe teach people how to take photographs. We could teach people how to be sports personalities, so that so I asked myself, with the last $10,000 that we had, I said, how can I get somebody to understand this isn't about sports, it's about academics? And that's why the last $10,000 went to the school on the condition it doesn't go to sports. It goes to academics, it goes to the clubs, because I was trying to pull focus back on what I'm here to do. If somebody graduates Carroll County High School and they're more equipped to live their life afterwards, and I had something to do with it, that's what I'm chasing. That's what I'm looking for. So even where today was concerned, we're going to start this thing at 4 o'clock. I said, if I want somebody to believe it's about academics, what's the best lead-in I could possibly have? To have 4 of the smartest people that I know sit here and do what? Talk about academics. So sports is one club in the golf bag, but it's not the main club in the golf bag.
Yeah, I noticed you had recently renamed your blog from the Carroll County Sports Report to A.S.P.N. Can you tell us a little bit about what A.S.P.N. stands for and why you chose to do that?
Absolutely. On the same lines, of course, anything that I borrow in trying to create the umbrella that I am to protect what's in Carroll County, I was sitting there, and it was Christian Quesenberry. One day she passed me in the school, and I said, when you see me, what do you think of? And she says, sports. I said, I want to shift that. It's not about sports. It's about growth. It's about aiding people. So what does the A stand for? It actually stands for you, right? It stands for academics. Okay, ESPN, ASPN, academics in front of sports, P for pageantry, because you want to include everybody, and then network. But that's what that was. That was another part of the shift to try to get the focus, realizing I've been a sports reporter for 45 years. I'm not trying to be a sports reporter. I'm trying to raise the bar on academics. So.
I'd like to just jump in right here. The significance of involvement. When I was high school principal, we had the opportunity to establish a junior ROTC program, and I was excited that we were also able to do that once we got to Carroll, or that Carroll, we were able to implement that here too. But here was the significance of that. The thing that I always felt about the JROTC program is it gave multiple students an opportunity to be involved, 1, to find a leadership role, 2, because the way it is structured, there are multiple opportunities for leadership. You could have a squad leader, a unit, a battalion. The structure offered multiple opportunities for leadership. And so that was what I thought was also good. But here's one little story that I'd share with you. We had a young lady who some would describe as having had school phobia. That is, she was reluctant to come to school. She became involved in the JROTC program, and by the time that she graduated, she was the battalion commander. Now, you don't know when you include or have opportunities for involvement how it's going to impact students. And so that's the significance of the academic competitions, not precluding sports at all, but any kind of time that you can have something that gives another student an opportunity to engage themselves, whatever their skills and talents are. Sometimes it helps them to discover it, and sometimes they can then grow it. And I would throw in another thing here, the significance of the arts in schools. One of the things that we had the opportunity to do in Carroll was to make sure that our students had opportunities in art and music. And at the time, technology was another one we started trying to get folks engaged with. And then this happened, let's see, about 5 or 6 years into the time I was superintendent, we were able to offer phys ed, for example. But here's the significance of art and music in my mind. We never know how people can express themselves. And if they have the, and we never know what outlets might work for them. But if you give the student an opportunity in art or music, we'll specifically speak to those, they can it helps them to understand something about themselves and the opportunity to express it in a way that without that opportunity they would never discover. And that's so important and so critical. And all that we do in schools, by the way.
Yeah, certainly. And I would like to give Ms. Dalton an opportunity to brag on her sons a little bit, who I both know are participants in our band, and she was as well. So can you talk a little bit about how music and art has changed your life?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anybody in the room who grew up in the Jerry Lyles years, then you know what Raider Band meant. It was life, and life was Raider Band. And I think at that point at Woodlawn School, if you weren't in band, that was the strange part, because it was everybody. I see a couple heads nodding, y'all remember. It just was what you wanted to do. And it takes a special educator, and Jerry Lyles was one of those guys, because he could size you up, and you might come in and say, Mr. Lyles, I want to play the trumpet, and he would say, no, you're a clarinet player, here's your clarinet. And you would succeed at that. He just knew, and he knew how to help people find their strengths, and he knew how to push us to be our absolute best. Like, you would not go into that classroom and give Jerry Lyles anything but 110%, ever. That just wouldn't happen. And so I grew up with that mentality and loved it. My mom, you talk about providing opportunities. My mom and dad were both first generation college students, and they were in some of the very first classes to graduate from Woodville Community College. And my mom's family had little of nothing. And she was in one of Mr. Lyles' very first bands, and they didn't have money for an instrument, but he found a way. He gave her, got her in with percussion, and she played the bells, and it was a serious confidence boost for her, and it was something she loved, and she passed that on to me. And my brother and I both played in the band. And so when Bradley and Will were signing up for 6th grade classes, they didn't have a choice. They had to at least do some band. And so they've also enjoyed, Bradley's been in band since 6th grade, and he plays the trombone, and Will plays the clarinet. And thanks to SpongeBob, there's a great rise in clarinet players these days, but having a great time. And Dr. McBride mentioned being able to express yourself, and it's hard when you have, and it was hard for, I guess, for my brother and I was the older, so maybe I didn't consider his point of view as much, but when you have 2 kids and they have different skills, and Bradley, much like ourselves, is the talker and Will is the thinker, but music is a place where Will can really just excel, and art, same way. Will can draw things, and he once went in a Lego store and just looked at that wall of pieces and picked out just individual things he wanted, and went back and built a model that he already had in his head, that he had seen just from looking at those pieces, which is something I could never do, something Bradley could never do. But he just, visual arts and music. And sometimes Will be sitting at home and he's on the computer. And I'm like, Will, haven't you been on the computer for a while? And he's actually writing music. He's on a music composition software and he's putting together music of his own. So he's actually not playing games or wasting time. But it's so important. And we've been so lucky here in our county. You know, a lot of times when budgets change and things shift, sometimes people look to the arts as a cut. And I feel like we've always had a high priority here to try to make sure those things are at the forefront. Like, you know, I took art at Woodlawn too with Jolynn Shockley, and that's another person who, Jolynn, you just wanted to do the best, and she knew you could. And so you walked into band, you walked into art, and they just knew that you could do way more than you thought you could do. So having educators like that and having those opportunities to present and perform, to travel, you know, with Woodlawn Band, we went to Kentucky Derby Parade, we went to Preakness Parade, we were on TV with Willard Scott. I mean, cool stuff that many people in the late 80s, early 90s were doing, right? And it's just, we've always had that sense of excellence in arts and music. So it's been important in my family and lots of other families, and I think Dr. McBride hit the nail on the head with it, that for so many kids, that's that outlet where they shine, whereas the rest of their day may not be as much fun for them, but that's that point where they come in and they do things that are incredible that if you didn't see it, you wouldn't believe it. And they just come out with this stuff, and it's amazing, beautiful pieces of art, amazing musicians. It's just a drama in our theater program. To see performances from kids, to see people who are shy and get on stage and take a major role. They're different people when they get up there, and they're in their element where they're comfortable and happy. And those things are key, because math may not be everybody's favorite part of the day, and calculus and biology and English, you know, I understand that my subject may not be everybody's favorite, but that gives those people that moment to shine, and it's so important.
Excellent answer. Thank you, Ms. Dalton. And a program from the high school that I've benefited from in ways that you cannot even imagine is the Career and Technical Education program. And Dr. Burnette started out as a drafting teacher in the Career and Technical Education program. Can you talk a little bit about what CTE means and why it's so beneficial and important for students nowadays?
Absolutely. But first of all, Jerry, I want to thank you, because that's the first time I've ever heard the word smart and my name used in the same sentence. So that's, I take that as a compliment.
Yes, sir.
You're right about, Ethan, about career and technical being such a huge part of a public education. We're very fortunate in Carroll County Public Schools, and Dr. McBride's heard me say this many times, because he actually hired me to basically run the Carroll County CTE program at one point in time. And that was that we have a career and technical program. It's in the same building as our academic programs and our other areas, our fine arts. So you can walk down one hallway. You can take honors English under Miss Dalton. You can walk down the other hallway and take agriculture or building trades, and then down another hallway and take band or music. And so we're comprehensive. And what we do is we provide folks with opportunities. And it makes me really proud today, because I see 3 former students in here, and all 3 former students have been successful. They came through Carroll County Public Schools. We provided them the opportunity. Now, they did it on their own, but we provided them with an opportunity and a spot to start their career. And I'm proud as heck out of all 3 of those guys. And I won't embarrass them by mentioning their names. But
Ethan, I would add to that when we travel and go to schools, I think our kids are surprised when they see how much we have here. And you may see that yourself when you go to other schools, that we've got all those things, like Dr. McBride or Dr. Burnette said, just right under one roof, that you can walk to your FFA classes, you can be upstairs in nursing, You can be in dual credit calculus. Like it's all there, and other schools don't have that. And sometimes I don't think they realize how fortunate they are. That it's
dual
all
credit, I
The
mean.
dual credit program. I mean, our people who graduate with a associate's degree before they even finish high school. I just don't think our kids, until they get out and see other parts of Southwest Virginia, other parts of Virginia, I don't think they realize how much we have here. We're not keeping it a secret, but people just don't realize how much is here.
Yeah, definitely. One of my teachers, she is from Blaine, but she teaches in Carroll County, and she was talking about how her students have to travel to Wythe County to take some of their CTE classes, and that was just mind-blowing to me, because I just walk down the hall, right? It's not a big deal, but it's crazy the degrees of separation that some students have to fight to take the classes they won't, whereas for us, it's just here. Mr. Carter, we're reaching the end of time here. We have a couple more minutes, but at the beginning of the year, you started the Cavalier Kudos program, which you alluded to earlier, where people can nominate teachers to nominate clubs where they will receive around $500 worth of donations. Earlier this year, a club that I am a heavy participant in, FBLA, received one of those donations, and it makes all the difference. Can you talk a little bit about where that idea came from and why it's important?
Yeah, thank you, Ethan. Yeah, that one on a list, and the reason the list exists, I was well into year 2 before I understood that the federal government wouldn't just allow me to give money away. When there's the page that shows the list of where all the money went, that was me trying to swim upstream. But when it came time, it's like every decision that you make, every investment that you make, you're going, what is the potential return on this? And that particular move, the $10,000 towards the academics, was designed to help as many people as it possibly could. And it's not to say that if you, say, buy a team shirts to wear, it's not to say that that doesn't make somebody's life better, but the $10,000, and I could not be prouder. I've been trying to notice as people came in. I haven't seen Mr. Thompson yet, but I could not be prouder of how that one turned out. I came in, I asked to have a chance to sit with our administration. I said, this is my plan. This is the $10,000. I want zero say on where it goes. I don't want to have an ounce of input. I just want to make sure it goes to places that are incredibly necessary for our school to be the best version of itself. And when you're trying to get the word out that it's not about how many games the football team won, it's not about how many matches the tennis team won, it's about trying to prepare somebody for life after school. And Wes Long's over there, he made a comment to me the very first time I ever met him. He said, do you understand that 75% of the people born and raised in Carroll County are going to do what? Stay in Carroll County. So that was, I told him, I said, I might have guessed 80%. But that's part of what the whole drive is that you're trying to make it better across the board. But I will not take credit for just how well laid out that plan was. That credit goes to our high school administration. Because my only dictation in the matter was I needed to stay on the academic side of the school.
Perfect, thank you. And as we're wrapping up, I do have one question that I would like every panelist to answer, and that is, we all know why you entered into education, but what makes you stay? Is it the students? Is it the experiences? Is it just the ability to help? Just give us a little bit of insight about why you stay in education.
It's the people. It has to be the people. When you go into the building, I was just talking today, my grandmother's in a nursing home, and we're talking about how hard that job is to work in a nursing home, because it's part medical, but it's a whole lot relationships. And sometimes the people who are doing those jobs are the youngest people in the profession, trying to have relationships with the oldest citizens, the oldest people in our community. It's hard, and teaching's like that. It's one of these jobs where it's about the people, it's about the relationships, and some days it's hard to dig in and get into those relationships, and other days it's a great day. But if you're not there for the people, then you can't you can't do this job. So you have to be there for the people and the relationships.
I would have to agree with Shannon. It's all about the people. It's about the kids. And if we ever forget that it's about the kids, then we need to get out. Okay, that's the time to get out, is if you forget what it's really about, and it's all about kids. And again, this young man right here, can't say enough about him. I mean, this kid is a Virginia Presidential Scholar. He is up for a national award as a National Presidential Scholar. These are the kind of kids we put out. Little old Carroll County, you know, we're just a little old bunch of country bumpkins, and nobody ever pays us any mind. But we're much more than that. We're much more than that. We put out kids like Ethan and other kids, and kids that they're in this room.
Let me explain that folks have spoken about their families. My dad went through the 7th grade 3 times. His mom was his teacher. I'll have to explain that, don't I? I will. In order for my dad to have proceeded beyond the 7th grade, he would have had to leave home to stay in town. And his older brother had done that, and the story goes, it didn't go so well. My mom finished high school. There were 3 children. I have an older brother and a younger sister, but as I was coming along, it was understood that if the expectation was that we go on to do something. I was never told that it had to be college, but the expectation was that we go forward, that we move ahead. And so, as having had the opportunity to work and serve in education, I hoped that what we were doing and what kept me involved is seeing the progress of our students and the growth of us as we work together to become something more than what anyone would expect that we could be. And I think that if we can help our community, our parents, our children expect that they can be more than, achieve more, that's how we all grow as a neighborhood, as a community, as a school system, as families, as children. So my involvement, and I've been blessed. I was blessed to be a part of the school system here. And I just hope that through that effort, we can all look ahead and want to desire more for us and our children.
Mr. Carter, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll actually use my time here to thank everybody that's here. It was kind of funny. We've been participating in a podcast by you don't label people, you don't want to say as bright of a student as there is, but I think in Ethan's case, we can call it that. But when you're trying to shift the focus from what it is we're trying to do in the direction of academics, in the direction of community pride, in the direction of it all matters, in the direction that every single day somebody presents you a teaching moment. And I'll sadly never be qualified to be a teacher. Now, with a show of hands, does anybody sitting at a table right here think they're the smartest person in the room? There's Chris Richardson raising his hand. It's my challenge every day to find somebody, even at 61 years old, to find somebody who's smarter than me, who's more experienced than me, who knows more than me, so that I can pick their brain just a little bit, so that I can try to continue to challenge myself, because the day that you think you've got this, I'm not sure where you go forward. Dr. McBride, our very first conversation, he said something to me. Dr. McBride, you're how old?
77.
He's 77. You know what he said to me? I don't know how to stop. He goes, this is what I've been doing my whole life. I don't know how to stop. I just think if you ever stop, you've lost the battle. I'm looking around at the people in this room that are raising their kids right now, and I don't have to tell the Burrises what challenges they have faced each day when they're raising teenagers and younger. We're all in this together, and the more times that we can believe that, I think it's going to be easier. First of all, I need to say thank you to the 4 people that were willing to sit here with me. Ethan has recorded the conversation. Anything I can do to help this young man go forward, I'm all about doing it. We're going to let these folks take their seats because we promised ourselves we're going to start this at 4 o'clock. Could not be prouder of the people that I'm sitting up here with. I consider them heroes in the county, even if one of them is only how old?
18.
18. You're never too young or too old to be a hero. Thank you all very much. I'm going to let these folks get to their tables, and we're going to get started. Ethan, you did a great job, but we knew you would, sir. Thank you so much.